Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for Monday, November 21st, the race of the day at Mahoning Valley. Pretty good $250,000 stakes race here for 3-year-old sprinters. They're going to go 6 furlongs in race number 8, the Steel Valley Sprint Stakes. And let's take a look at this field right now. The race of the day brought to you by DRF Bets, field of 11. And you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen right now for free access on your mobile device. Pretty interesting and well-matched field here. I guess you put up a purse like this for 3-year-old sprinters at the end of the year, and you'll get some horses to show up. 11 horses, again, have shipped into Mahoning Valley to run in this race. Sort of a lukewarm morning line favorite drawn to the far outside post. Number 11 is Scaramouche, shipping in for a really good trainer from the Mid-Atlantic region, off of a really nice win in the Gallon Bob in his most recent start. He's 3-1 on the morning line. I suppose he should be favored in here. The second choice on the line is number 7, Hoist the Gold, who is 7-2 in here. You also have the number 1, Knocker Down, the number 5, Tejano Twist. They are 4-1 and 9-2 respectively. They just ran against each other at Keeneland, and it was pretty close at the end with Tejano Twist coming out on top with a little bit of a late rally. But those two horses are both in really good form leading into this race. It feels like a pretty well-matched field. And perhaps trips will be important because it feels like they might be going in this race. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for the Steel Valley Sprint Stakes. The number 4, Golden Hornet, at 10-1 on the morning line for trainer Larry Rivelli, is going to ship into this spot with pretty big speed. So it will be no surprise to see Golden Hornet making the lead in here. Of course, it is a red bar scenario according to Timeform US, which suggests it's going to be a very fast pace. So he might have to run to get there. But he's a fast horse. He didn't make the lead in his most recent start. He was pretty disappointing, actually, in his most recent start at Hawthorne. Didn't make the lead that day and got tired through the stretch, but he did get bumped really, really hard at the start. So I guess he had a little bit of an excuse in that race. Some of the other horses who should be forward in here, Fast Jack, who's 10-1 on the line. He's a horse with plenty of speed. Kentucky Hot Brown, the number 2, should show some speed. Knocker Down is a pretty fast horse, breaking from the rail here, so his rider might have no choice but to come running out of there. And Scaramouche, I think one of the things, besides his overall really good form, one of the things that you like about Scaramouche is he's a pretty handy horse. He's not going to be that far away, but he does not need the lead to be effective, as he showed in his most recent start, where he sort of stalked in a 4-wide trip and then got the job done. So it feels like maybe more than anyone, he's the horse that you least have to worry about if this pace does wind up getting fast, because he's certainly capable of rating and running, which maybe he has to do in this race. We'll talk about a few of the contenders in this race. This is a big field, but I do think there's some filler in here. I don't want to waste a lot of time on those horses. But Knocker Down is certainly the number 1, certainly one of the horses that I think you have to consider in this race. He just brings really good form into this spot. He's won 2 of his last 3 starts on dirt. Byers 91, 96, 101 in his most recent start. So he's certainly fast enough to win here. He has shown in the past that he doesn't have to be right on the lead to be effective. So we'll see if he's going to be able to, pull some kind of a trip in here. I guess breaking from the rail, his hand might be forced a little bit, but he has shown that he can sit a little bit if he has to. 3 starts back at Keeneland, he was in that Tejano Twist race. He was actually a big price in that spot, shipping in from Prairie Meadows, and he ran really well. He kept right up close to the pace in there. He did manage to get through on the rail in the stretch to take the lead. And the Tejano Twist, who also got a really good ride in that race, ran him down at the end. But this horse ran well in there. He was second best at the end. His most recent start, switching back to dirt from a turf try that didn't work out. Big 101 buyer in that race. He did go to the lead that day. It was a sloppy track, so you have to worry about that a little bit. But the improvement that he showed in that race, maybe the wet track had something to do with it, but it certainly wasn't unexpected. This is a horse who's been improving from race to race, and he certainly took a big step forward there. If he runs another 101, he's really tough in here. Kentucky Hot Brown has speed, but looks overmatched. A horse whose form has improved for his new connections, but he was claimed for $8,000 back at the end of August. Number 3, Sheltui's Bali at 30-1 on the line, has never run a race that's going to make him competitive in here. The 4 is Golden Hornet. I think he's a horse you want to at least consider in here for trainer Larry Rivelli. Won his first 2 career starts on dirt, and with figures too. 83 for the debut, where he was the only first-time starter in that field at Colonial. Had the best speed, made the lead, would not let the 3-5 favorite get to him through the stretch, and wound up winning clear. That was a good performance. They tried turf in his second start at Saratoga. he showed his speed there and wasn't good enough against some New York breds. This horse is a New York bred. Then they went back to Hawthorne, easily wired allowance horses. And again, in his most recent start, he's a pretty substantial favorite in an allowance race there at Hawthorne Park. And at the end of the day, I guess if you want to give him the excuse that, he just got bumped really hard between horses at the start and wound up sort of towards the back of the pack. Then he just made his way forward, contested the pace, took over to a short lead in the stretch, and just couldn't really get control of it, and then got tired at the end and got out-finished. I get that he had trouble at the start. I still thought it was kind of a disappointing performance, and it sort of makes me reluctant to take him in here, especially if this pace is going to be fast again, because he's one who hasn't shown that he can do it any other way. Tahano Twist is the 5. Another horse that's just bringing good form into this race, particularly his recent dirt form. It's just pretty good. 2 starts back. He was only 3rd best rallying at Churchill Downs, but he earned an 87 Beyer speed figure. He had run faster races than that in the past. And then in his most recent start is that Keeneland race we were talking about that Knocker Down was also in. And maybe this horse just had a slightly better trip because he was a little bit further off the pace in there. And he just got a great ride from Chris Landeros, who just did not go wide around the turn. He managed to stay towards the inside to save some ground. And then he got a clean run through the stretch without having to alter course at all. And he managed to close down Knocker Down in that race. I thought he ran really well. And just the fact that he's a horse whose, general running style lends itself to this kind of a race. If they're going to go fast in front of him, he's just going to sit and make one run here. We'll see if Landeros can work out another good trip for him, because if he does, Tahano Twist is a contender. Fast Jack is the 6. He's got races that make him a contender in here. A horse who's run 8 times so far, 6 wins, 2 seconds. His figures are getting better. The problem with him is he's a speed horse, and this feels like a pretty significant step up in class. The figures suggest that he might be able to go with these horses. If you look at all of his races, though, out of town, he's just very heavily favored in most of them, and that's not going to be the case here. He's facing way better horses, but if you believe in him, you're going to get a price this time. Hoist of Gold is the 7 for trainer Dallas Stewart. Very consistent, just the kind of horse that I think you always have to take seriously in his races, because he shows up and he runs every time, and his figures are incrementally getting better with every single start. Not a lot of wins on his card, and I guess that could be one of the drawbacks, but this is a horse who's, run against Gunite in 3 of his last 5 starts, and one of the others he was in against Elite Power, who of course won the Vosburg and then won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So this horse has been keeping really good company. He's been showing up and running good races against that really good company. A 98 Beyer in his most recent start, went 2nd best to Gunite, and another horse who does not need the lead to be effective. Easy to make a case for this horse. He's probably taking money in here. We'll see if he can finally get over the hump here and find the winner's circle. The 8 is Valbeat. Very big price on the morning line, off of back-to-back wins against much weaker opposition. Needs to improve again. The number 9, Roger McQueen, listed at 6-1 on the morning line for trainer Larry Ravelli. Very interesting to see this horse at that kind of a price. A horse who made 4 starts as a 2-year-old last year. Won 2 of them, both sprints. One of those a stakes race, going 7 furlongs at Ellis Park with a 70 Beyer. He ran fine that day. We haven't seen him since last September's Grade 3 Iroquois. When they tried to stretch him out, he showed speed and stopped, and wound up finishing 9th of 10 in there. It's been 14 months since we've seen this horse, and this is the spot that Ravelli's going to bring him back in off the layoff. He better have him fit. This is a horse who wants to be forward in his races. There's a lot of speed in here for him to have to deal with early on. So if he's going to beat this field, and he's going to do it towards the front end, he's going to have to be really fit. He does show up with a couple of recent bullet breezes, so maybe he'll come back and take a big step forward in here. He's going to have to. The number 10, Friar Lawrence, just looks like a horse who's in too tough in this race. His last 3 starts since they bumped him up. He won off the layoff back in July on a sloppy track, sprinting with a very solid 89 Beyer. That made him 2 for 2 on dirt in his career, but since then they've run him in 3 straight stakes races, and he's just been nowhere in those races. He's got an awful lot to prove. They're going to put blinkers on this time. He's another horse who has one race that will give him a chance, and he's probably going to be somewhere back off the pace, so a fast pace could help him if it develops. The 11 is Scaramouche, and he's the horse to beat. Irad Ortiz is going to come in to ride this horse on Monday. At least he's listed to as of now. And he's another horse who's just, very easy to like, very easy to make a case for. Shows up and runs every single time. 6 for 9 in his career so far. And again, in that most recent start where they stepped him up into the Gallant Bob, I think you could argue that was a much tougher field than this one. And Scaramouche kept up with the pace towards the outside, took over through the stretch and stayed really gamely to hold on with a 94 by. It was a good win for this horse. He has post 11 here, but he had post 13 that day, and he was basically 4 wide around the track. Just a good performance, and I feel like even though it's not the top figure in the field, I think if he comes back in here and runs another race like that one, I think it makes Scaramouche pretty tough in this race. I thought about this race for a pretty long time, and I ultimately just decided to take Scaramouche in here. I'm going to put him on top. I don't mind him being drawn to the outside. I think if he just shows up and runs the kind of race that he ran in that Gallant Bob last time, I think this is a great spot for him. So I took him over Hoist the Gold, who again, Hoist the Gold, he's not exactly a winning type, but he's easy to make a case for in here. I suspect he takes money in this race, as he should, and maybe he'll just get the best of the trips and be able to finally get into the winner's circle here. Mostly 11-7 for me. I went 11-7, 1-5 in Monday's race of the day. It's race number 8 at Mahoning Valley, a big $250,000 sprint for the 3-year-olds, the Steel Valley Sprint Stakes. Race number 8, Mahoning Valley, Monday race of the day, approximate post time, 4:03 Eastern Time.